My name is Evelyn Moore. I'm 35 years old, and 3 years ago, I stood in the rain at my father's funeral and watched my brother erase me from our family's legacy. My hands shook as I held the soil from Dad's grave, cold and wet between my fingers, while Lucas delivered a eulogy about protecting our father's reputation at all costs. But what Lucas didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had been documenting his crimes for 5 years. Every forged signature, every falsified report, every lie. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been invisible in your own family? Have you ever watched someone steal your story while everyone smiled and applauded? Because that's exactly what happened to me. The day was October 28th, 3 years ago. The funeral of Edward Moore, founder of Moore Harvest, the iconic pumpkin and agricultural company that had defined Salem for 3 generations. Rain poured down in sheets, turning the cemetery into a landscape of mud and wilting flowers. The pumpkins in the fields beyond had started to yellow and rot as if the earth itself was mourning. I stood at the back of the crowd, clutching my black umbrella, watching my older brother Lucas step up to the microphone. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit, his jaw set in that expression he'd perfected over the years. The one that said, "I am the rightful heir, the only one who matters." "My father," Lucas began, his voice carrying over the sound of rain on canvas, "believed that reputation is the only thing that survives a drought. He built Moore Harvest from a single pumpkin patch into an agricultural empire worth over $200 million. And he taught me that protecting that reputation, protecting what he built, is sacred." I felt my throat tighten. "He taught me that too, Lucas. He taught me." "Edward Moore was a man of integrity," Lucas continued, and I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing bitterly. "And I, Lucas Moore, will protect his legacy at all costs. I will ensure that everything he built continues to thrive, that the Moore name remains synonymous with quality and trust." The crowd murmured their approval. 200 people who worked for us, who depended on us, who believed every word coming out of my brother's mouth. He didn't mention me once. Not once. I was the CFO for 7 years. I was the one who saved the company from bankruptcy in 2018 with the organic pumpkin expansion. I was the one who sat up until 3 in the morning during harvest season, running numbers, finding efficiencies, making sure every single employee got their paycheck on time. But according to Lucas's eulogy, I didn't exist. After the service, I walked to my father's grave alone. Everyone else had hurried to their cars, eager to escape the rain. I knelt in the mud, my dress soaking through, and pressed my palm against the fresh earth. "I'm sorry, Dad," I whispered. "I'm so sorry." That night, everything changed. I went to my mother's house, the Victorian mansion where I'd grown up, where 4 generations of Moores had lived. Judith Moore, my mother, sat in the library with a glass of wine, staring at the rain-streaked windows. At 62, she was still elegant, still commanding, but that night she looked old and defeated. "Mom," I said, closing the door behind me, "we need to talk about Lucas." She didn't turn around. "Not tonight, Evelyn, please." "He's destroying Dad's legacy. You know he is. The safety violations, the falsified maintenance reports, the—" "Stop!" Her voice was sharp, final. "I don't want to hear it." I moved around to face her. "You're letting him erase me from the company, from the family. You signed the papers today, didn't you? The board vote to remove me." My mother's hand trembled as she raised the wine glass to her lips. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, so quietly I almost couldn't hear her, "Yes." The word hit me like a physical blow. Why? Because Lucas knows the truth about your father's death. Her voice broke. And if you speak up, if you fight this, the company will lose everything. I sank into the chair across from her. What truth? My mother finally looked at me, and I saw tears streaming down her face. The silo explosion wasn't an accident, Evelyn. The room seemed to tilt. What? Lucas cut the maintenance budget by 80%. He did it unilaterally without board approval to improve the quarterly profits. He wanted to impress the shareholders, wanted to prove he was the one driving growth. She took a shaking breath. Your father found out. They had a terrible argument in the equipment yard. Edward threatened to remove Lucas as CEO to tell the board everything. And then the silo exploded, I finished, my voice hollow. They called it a technical accident. I paid for settlements out of court, made sure OSHA didn't dig too deep. Your father died, and more harvests survived on my silence. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. Lucas knows I covered it up. He knows that if the truth comes out, I'll be complicit. The company will be destroyed, and everything your father and grandfather built will be gone. I stood up slowly, my mind reeling. So you're choosing him. You're choosing Lucas and the company over justice, over Dad, over me. I'm choosing survival, she said. I'm sorry, Evelyn. I'm so sorry. But Lucas is CEO now, and he wants you out. If you fight him, he'll expose everything. We'll all lose. I walked to the door, then paused. You know what Dad used to tell me when I was little? He'd take me out to the pumpkin fields and let me hold the soil, and he'd say, seeds need darkness to sprout, Evelyn. That's not a curse, that's nature. My mother said nothing. I'm leaving, I continued. I'm leaving Salem, leaving the company, leaving all of this. But inside me, Mom, a seed has been planted tonight, and it's going to sprout in the right season. I left that night, packed a single suitcase, withdrew my savings, and drove 6 hours to Portland. I rented a small apartment, found work as a financial consultant, and disappeared from the Moore family story. But I didn't forget. Every night, I opened the leather journal I'd been keeping for 5 years, the one no one knew about. Every meeting where Lucas took credit for my work, documented. Every forged signature on a budget report, photographed. Every safety violation I'd reported to him that he'd ignored, recorded with dates, times, and witnesses. 5 years of evidence, stored in a fireproof safe in a storage unit under my name. Because I knew, I had always known. My brother wasn't clever enough to hide his tracks completely. He was just arrogant enough to think he didn't have to. And now, 3 years later, with Dad in the ground and Lucas ruling Moore Harvest like a king, I was about to teach him a lesson our father should have taught him long ago. That reputation isn't something you inherit, it's something you earn. And when you build yours on lies, theft, and murder, because yes, what Lucas did was murder, then eventually the harvest comes. And Lucas, big brother, your harvest is coming. Let me tell you how it started, how I became invisible in my own family. It started when I was 8 years old and brought home straight A's on my report card. Dad was in his office going over harvest projections, and I burst in waving the paper like a victory flag. That's my girl, he said, lifting me up and spinning me around, sharp as a tack, just like your grandmother. Lucas came home an hour later with B's and C's. Dad sat him down at the kitchen table, his expression serious. Lucas, you need to work harder. You're capable of more than this. But Mom stroked Lucas's hair and said, you're just like your grandfather James, a natural leader. Grades don't measure what really matters. Even then, at 8 years old, I could see which one of us would inherit the crown. The pattern continued through high school, through college, through every single milestone of our lives. I earned a full scholarship to Cornell for agricultural economics. Lucas barely graduated from a state business school. I came back with ideas to modernize the company, to expand into organic farming, to build sustainable practices that would carry us into the future. Lucas came back with a sense of entitlement and Dad's reluctant blessing to join the executive team. He's family, Dad told me when I questioned the decision, and family takes care of family. I should have asked him then, what about me? Don't I count as family? But I didn't, because I was raised to be a good daughter, to be patient, to prove my worth through work, not words. So I worked. In 2016, when I was 26, I identified a gap in the market for organic, locally grown pumpkins for the premium restaurant industry. I spent 6 months developing the business plan, securing contracts, designing the new greenhouse systems. I presented it to the board in January 2017. Lucas sat through my presentation with his arms crossed, barely looking at the slides. When I finished, he said, "It's an interesting idea, Evelyn, but risky. We need more analysis." 3 months later, Lucas presented his organic expansion plan to the board. It was my proposal, word for word, with his name on the cover page. Dad looked at him with pride. "Now that's innovative thinking, son." I sat in the back of that boardroom, my nails digging into my palms, and said nothing. Because what could I say? He stole my idea. I'd sound petty, jealous, like the bitter little sister who couldn't handle her brother's success. So instead, I started keeping records. I created a private cloud account, not connected to the company, not accessible to anyone but me. Every email where I outlined ideas that Lucas later claimed. Every meeting minute that was edited before official filing to give Lucas credit for problem solving, he didn't do. Every financial report where my analysis was presented as team effort, while Lucas's mediocre projections were highlighted as visionary leadership. The organic expansion saved more harvest. By 2018, we were on the edge of bankruptcy. Traditional pumpkin farming was struggling against mega producers, and our margins were razor thin. The organic line brought in premium clients, opened new revenue streams, and stabilized the company. The board gave Lucas a bonus and a promotion to COO. I got an email. "Thanks for your contribution to the team effort." But I had something they didn't know about. I had the original proposal with my name on it, time-stamped and saved. I had the contracts I'd negotiated personally, with email chains proving I was the one who built those relationships. I had testimonials from the restaurant buyers who worked with me directly, who'd never even met Lucas until the celebration dinner. I documented everything because somewhere deep inside, I knew this day would come. In 2019, Dad had his first heart attack. He survived, but it weakened him. The doctor said he needed to reduce stress, to step back from the day-to-day operations. The board voted to promote Lucas to CEO. I thought, foolishly, that maybe this would be my chance. With Lucas in the top position, maybe I could finally step into a role that matched my contributions. Instead, Lucas called me into his office on his first day as CEO. "Evelyn," he said, not even looking up from his computer, "I'm reorganizing the executive structure. I need people I can trust in key positions." "I'm your sister," I said. "If you can't trust me—" "Exactly, you're my sister, which means there'll always be questions about favoritism, about whether you earned your position or just inherited it." He finally looked at me and his eyes were cold. "I'm bringing in outside talent for the CFO role, but don't worry, I'm creating a new position for you, senior financial analyst. You'll report to the new CFO. It was a demotion, a blatant, humiliating demotion. Lucas, I said, my voice shaking, I've been CFO for 3 years. I saved this company. You did good work on the organic project, he interrupted. But let's be honest, Evelyn, you're detail-oriented, which is valuable, but you're not a strategic thinker. You're not C-suite material. This new role plays to your strengths. I wanted to throw something at him. I wanted to scream about all the times I'd fixed his mistakes, covered for his incompetence, made him look good to Dad and the board. Instead, I smiled. When does this take effect? 2 weeks. I walked out of his office, went to the bathroom, and cried for 20 minutes. Then I dried my eyes, fixed my makeup, and went back to my desk. And I kept documenting. Every meeting where Lucas made catastrophically bad decisions, every time the new CFO, a man named David Chen, who was competent but not brilliant, had to quietly come to me to understand the real financial picture. Every safety corner Lucas cut to boost short-term profits, because by then I knew something Lucas didn't. Our father was dying. The doctors had told him privately 6 months, maybe a year. His heart was failing. And Dad, being Dad, told only me, made me promise not to tell Lucas, not to tell Mom because he didn't want pity or panic. I need to know the company's in good hands, he told me that day in the hospital. Lucas is CEO, but Evelyn, you're the one who really runs things. You're the one who has the vision, the ethics, the intelligence. Promise me you'll protect what we built. I promised. I didn't know then that Lucas would kill him before the 6 months was up. It happened in September 2020. Lucas had been cutting costs aggressively, trying to show massive profit growth to attract buyers. He wanted to sell the company to a multinational, cash out for hundreds of millions. But to make more harvest attractive, he needed to show increasing margins. So he cut maintenance on the silos by 80%. I found out by accident. I was reviewing a budget report and noticed the discrepancy. When I asked David Chen about it, he looked uncomfortable. Lucas approved it personally, David said. He said the equipment was over-maintained, that we were wasting money on unnecessary inspections. That's insane, I said. Those silos are 50 years old. The grain dust alone is a fire hazard. We need regular... I know, David interrupted. I told him. He said to defer the maintenance until after the fiscal year, that we'd catch up once the sale went through. I went straight to Dad. He was in his home office, looking frailer than I'd ever seen him. When I told him about the maintenance cuts, his face went white. He did what? I showed him the reports, watched as his hands shook while he read through the numbers. That's not just negligent, Dad said quietly. That's criminal. If something happens, if there's an accident. We need to tell the board, I'll handle it. Dad stood up and I saw a flash of the man he used to be. Strong, certain, protective. I'm still chairman. I'll call an emergency meeting, remove him as CEO if I have to. This ends now. That was on a Wednesday. On Thursday, Dad confronted Lucas at the equipment yard. I wasn't there, but the workers told me later that they heard shouting. Heard Dad say something about betraying everything this family stands for, and Lucas yelling back about finally being free of the old man's judgment. At 3:47 p.m., silo number 4 exploded. The fireball was visible from 3 miles away. The explosion killed 2 workers instantly. Dad was thrown 30 feet. They said he probably died from the impact, that the heart attack came after. The company claimed it was a tragic accident, a perfect storm of bad luck and equipment failure. But I knew exactly what happened. Lucas had deferred maintenance on a silo filled with grain dust, one of the most explosive substances in agriculture. During the argument, something, maybe an electrical short, maybe static, provided the spark, and my father died for Lucas's greed. The investigation was brief. Mom paid out-of-court settlements to the workers' families, citing her desire to avoid prolonged litigation during this painful time. OSHA closed the case, noting equipment failure due to age and recommending upgraded safety protocols. Lucas delivered the eulogy at Dad's funeral, talking about reputation and legacy. And I stood in the rain with a handful of soil and made a promise I would bring my brother down. Not next week, not next month. But when the time was right, when I had everything I needed, I would expose every lie, every theft, every crime, because Dad had taught me that seeds need darkness to sprout, and I had planted mine in the deepest darkness I could find. 3 years I waited. 3 years of living in Portland, working as a consultant, building a new life while Lucas ran more harvest into the ground with his short-sighted greed. Then, on October 1st of this year, an email arrived in my inbox. The sender was listed as A. Pierce. The subject line? You're going to want to see this. I opened it with shaking hands. Evelyn? We've never met, but I used to work for your family's company, head of IT and PR. I was good at my job, great actually. But when I found some irregularities in the server logs, some documents that didn't match the official records, I made the mistake of mentioning it to Lucas. He fired me the next day, called it performance issues, threatened to sue me if I said anything to anyone. But here's the thing about IT people, we back everything up. Before they escorted me out, I copied the server logs, every forged signature, every falsified report, every piece of fraud your brother has committed over the past 5 years. I have it all. What you do with this information is up to you. I'm attaching a sample, just enough to prove I'm telling the truth. If you want the rest, reply to this email. I'm not doing this out of nobility or justice or any of that shit. I'm doing it because I hate hypocrites. And your brother is the biggest hypocrite I've ever met. Amber Pierce attached was a PDF. I opened it and there it was. Lucas's signature on a maintenance deferral form dated 2 weeks before the explosion. The signature was digitally forged. You could see the metadata, the copy-paste artifacts. Below it, a screenshot of Lucas's actual signature from another document. They didn't match, which meant Lucas had tried to claim he never approved the deferral, that it was David Chen's decision, that he had no knowledge of the safety risks. But Amber Pierce had proof that he'd forged documents to cover his tracks. I sat at my laptop for an hour, staring at that PDF, my heart pounding. Then I typed a reply. Amber, I want everything. Every file, every log, every piece of evidence, and I want to meet in person. Evelyn Moore. Her response came within minutes. I was hoping you'd say that. Meet me at Salem Central Coffee, October 5th, 10 a.m. Come alone. I packed a bag that night, drove back to Salem for the first time in 3 years. The harvest season was beginning. The pumpkins in the fields were turning orange. Halloween decorations were going up in the town square. And I was about to start digging up the truth my family had buried. It was time for the harvest. Amber Pierce was exactly what I expected. Sharp-eyed, skeptical, and angry. We met at a corner table in the coffee shop, far from other customers. She was 31 but looked older, the way people do when life has burned them. She slid a USB drive across the table. Everything's on here, she said without preamble. Server logs, document metadata, email chains, even some audio recordings from the office security system. Lucas isn't smart enough to know that the cameras have audio. I picked up the drive like it was made of gold. Why are you doing this? Amber smiled bitterly. I told you, I hate hypocrites. Your brother stood in front of the whole company and gave a speech about integrity and family values. Then he fired me for finding evidence that he's a fraud. Threatened to destroy my career if I said anything. She leaned forward. But here's what Lucas doesn't understand. I don't care about my career anymore. I care about making him pay. Have you looked at this? I asked, holding up the drive. Do you know what's on it? Every file. I know exactly what's there. Her eyes hardened. Including proof that he knew about the safety violations before your father died. Including emails where he explicitly told maintenance to delay all non-critical work until Q4, including the forged documents he created afterward to cover his ass. My hand shook. This is enough to charge him with manslaughter. At minimum, Amber agreed. Probably more, depending on what the DA thinks they can prove. But here's the problem, Evelyn. That's your call to make. I can give you the evidence, but I can't do anything with it myself. Lucas made sure I signed an NDA when I was fired. If I go public, he'll sue me into oblivion. But I didn't sign anything, I said slowly. Exactly. Your family. You have standing. And more importantly, she smiled, you have motive. Everyone knows Lucas pushed you out. If you come forward, it looks like a wronged family member exposing the truth. That plays a lot better than a disgruntled ex-employee. I looked at the USB drive, then back at Amber. What do you want out of this? Nothing. Literally nothing. I just want to watch him burn. We talked for another hour. Amber explained the technical details of the evidence, how she'd preserved the metadata, how the timestamps proved the documents were authentic. She told me about Lucas's affairs, his alcohol problem, his increasing paranoia about being exposed. He knows someone has this information, Amber said. He doesn't know who, but he's scared. That's why he's rushing the sale to the Japanese company. He wants to cash out and disappear before everything collapses. When's the sale happening? I asked. October 31st, Halloween night. He's throwing a huge gala at the company headquarters, inviting all the major shareholders and the Japanese buyers. It's supposed to be a celebration, a final hurrah before the company changes hands. I felt a cold smile cross my face. Perfect? Amber raised her eyebrows. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that Halloween is the perfect night to unmask a monster. She laughed. A real laugh this time. I like you, Evelyn Moore. You've got style. Can you help me, Piba? I asked. With the technical side? Depends what you need. The gala will have a presentation system, right? Screens, projectors, probably a whole AV setup for Lucas's big speech. Amber's eyes lit up with understanding. You want to hijack it. I want everyone in that room to see exactly who Lucas Moore really is. I can do that, Amber said. I helped to set up the original system, so I know the back doors. Give me a week to write the code, and I can override the whole thing remotely. He won't be able to stop it, even if he pulls the power. What about redundancies? If he tries to shut it down? I said I can do it, Amber interrupted, grinning. Trust me. This is what I'm good at. By the time I'm done, Lucas could throw the projector out the window, and the feed would still be running on everyone's phones. We shook hands. She was the first ally I'd found in 3 years. But I needed more. I needed someone on the inside. Someone with legal authority to make the evidence stick. I needed Nathan Brooks. Nathan had been Moore Harvest's corporate lawyer for 12 years. He was good at his job, meticulous, ethical, the kind of lawyer who actually believed in the law. But he had one weakness. 5 years ago, he'd made a mistake. A small embezzlement, barely $15,000 during a messy divorce when he was desperate and stupid. Lucas found out, Lucas kept the evidence, and Lucas had been using it to control Nathan ever since, forcing him to sign off on questionable deals, to draft contracts that skirted legality, to be complicit in everything Lucas did. I knew Nathan hated it. I'd seen it in his face during board meetings, the way he'd look down at his papers and refuse to meet anyone's eyes when Lucas pushed through another unethical decision. So one night, I waited in the parking garage of Nathan's office building. When he emerged, briefcase in hand, I stepped out of the shadows. "Jesus!" Nathan jumped, pressing a hand to his chest. "Evelyn? What are you? You can't be here. If Lucas finds out that you talked to me," I finished. "What's he going to do, Nathan? He's already got you by the throat." Nathan's jaw tightened. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The embezzlement. The $15,000 you took during your divorce. Lucas has the evidence, and he's been blackmailing you for years." I stepped closer. "I know everything, Nathan, and I'm here to offer you a way out." He looked around the empty garage, paranoid. "This is insane." "You need to leave." "Lucas killed our father," I said flatly. "He cut maintenance on the silos. Dad found out, they argued, and then the explosion happened. It wasn't an accident. It was negligent homicide, maybe even murder. And you know it, Nathan. You've been living with that knowledge for 3 years. Nathan's face crumbled. "I didn't know about the maintenance cuts until after. I swear to God, Evelyn, if I'd known—" "But you know now, and you've been helping him cover it up. You drafted the settlement agreement with the workers' families. You reviewed the OSHA reports. You made sure nothing pointed back to Lucas." I held up the USB drive Amber had given me. "I have evidence. Server logs, forged documents, audio recordings, everything I need to take Lucas down. But I need a lawyer who can present it properly, who can make it legally airtight." "I can't," Nathan whispered. "If Lucas finds out I helped you, he'll expose your embezzlement. Yes, and you'll lose your license, maybe go to jail." I nodded. "But if you help me, Nathan, if you do the right thing here, I'll make sure that evidence disappears. Lucas won't be in any position to use it. And more importantly, you'll be able to live with yourself again." Nathan stared at me for a long moment. Then quietly, "What do you need?" "I need you to review this evidence. I need you to confirm it's legally valid, that it'll hold up in court. And on October 31st at the Halloween gala, I need you to be ready to make a formal statement to the board and the shareholders." "You're planning to expose him publicly?" "I'm planning to give him exactly what he gave Dad. No warning, no mercy, just truth." Nathan took the USB drive with shaking hands. "If I do this, my career is over." "Your career is already over, Nathan. You've been a puppet for 3 years. This is your chance to be a lawyer again, a real one." I put my hand on his shoulder. "You once told me the law doesn't protect liars. Now prove it." He looked at me, and I saw something change in his eyes. A decision being made. "Give me 3 days," he said. "I'll review everything. If it's solid, I'm in." "And the embezzlement evidence?" "Lucas keeps it in a safe in his home office. I saw him put it there once, years ago. If you can get it, I'll get it," I promised. That weekend, I broke into Lucas's house. Sounds dramatic, right? But I still had the key from when I used to water his plants during vacations. Lucas never changed his locks. Too arrogant to think anyone would dare. The safe was exactly where Nathan said it would be. The combination was our father's birthday. Of course it was. Inside, I found Nathan's file, copies of bank statements, internal investigation reports, everything. I also found other files, evidence Lucas was keeping on board members, on shareholders, on anyone he might need to control or manipulate. My brother wasn't just a criminal. He was a blackmailer, a systematic abuser of power. I took everything, photographed it all, then put the originals back. Now I had leverage. On October 15th, Lucas made his announcement, an email to all employees, all shareholders, all of Salem. It is my great honor to announce that Moore Harvest has reached an agreement to be acquired by Tanaka Agricultural Holdings of Osaka, Japan. The sale will be finalized on October 31st at a celebration gala at our headquarters. This is a new chapter for our company, a chance to join a global leader and expand beyond anything my father could have imagined. Together, we will build something greater than the Moore name. We will build a legacy that spans continents. I hope to see you all at the gala. Lucas Moore, CEO. I read that email 3 times, my anger building with each word. Beyond anything my father could have imagined. Greater than the Moore name. He was erasing Dad completely, turning 3 generations of family heritage into just another corporate acquisition, another line on a multinational spreadsheet. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about justice for Dad's death. It was about protecting everything the Moore family had built, everything we'd stood for. Lucas was willing to burn it all down for a payout. I wasn't going to let that happen. On October 20th, Nathan called me. "It's solid," he said without preamble. "Every document, every file, every piece of evidence, it's all legally valid. The metadata's intact, the timestamps are verified, and the audio recordings are clear enough for a jury. Evelyn, if you present this, Lucas is going to prison. Will you testify?" A pause. Then, "Yes, I'll testify." "Thank you, Nathan." "Don't thank me yet. We still have to survive the gala. And Evelyn? Lucas sent me something this morning, a formal invitation for me specifically. He wants me on stage with him when he signs the final papers. He's going to use me as a prop, show the Japanese buyers that he has trusted legal counsel." I smiled coldly. "Perfect. You'll have a front row seat." October 25th, 6 days before the gala, I received a formal notice in the mail, sent via courier. It was a cease and desist letter. Evelyn Moore is hereby notified that any interference with the sale of Moore Harvest Company to Tanaka Agricultural Holdings will result in immediate legal action, including but not limited to lawsuits for tortious interference, defamation, and breach of fiduciary duty. Lucas knew I was coming. He didn't know what I had, but he knew I was planning something. Good. Let him be scared. On October 28th, I received another letter. This one was from a family law firm. "This is to notify you that Lucas Moore has filed a motion for a protective order, citing concerns about potential harassment and interference with business operations. A hearing is scheduled for November 5th. He was trying to tie me up in legal knots, make it impossible for me to act. But November 5th was after Halloween. He was too late. On October 30th, the day before the gala, my mother called me for the first time in 3 years. "Evelyn?" Her voice was small, frightened. "Are you in town?" "Yes, Mom." "Lucas knows. He knows you're here, and he knows you're planning something. He's very angry. He said if you show up at the gala, he'll have security remove you. He said he'll charge you with trespassing." "Let him try. Please, Evelyn, please don't do this. Whatever you're planning, it's not worth it. You'll destroy the family, destroy the company." "Mom," I interrupted gently. "Lucas already destroyed the family. He killed Dad. He stole from the company. He's been blackmailing people, manipulating the board, committing fraud for years. All I'm doing is bringing the truth into the light." She was crying now. "But if you do this, we'll lose everything. The sale will fall through, the company will survive," I said firmly. "It survived the Depression. It survived droughts and floods and market crashes. It'll survive Lucas's crimes being exposed. What it won't survive is continuing to operate on lies and corruption." "I can't lose both my children," Mom whispered. "You already lost Dad. You already lost me, and you'll never really have Lucas because Lucas only loves himself." I took a breath. "But after tomorrow night, after the truth comes out, maybe we can start over. Maybe we can build something real." She hung up without answering. That night, I stood in my hotel room, looking across the street at Moore Harvest headquarters. The building was lit up with orange lights, artificial and garish, hundreds of pumpkins arranged around the entrance. Workers were setting up for the gala, tables, stages, a massive screen for Lucas's presentation. My phone buzzed. A text from Amber. "System check complete. I'm armed and ready. He won't know what hit him." Another text from Nathan. I reviewed the evidence again. "It's airtight. See you tomorrow." I opened my laptop and looked at the video I'd prepared. The one that would play on every screen in that building tomorrow night. The one that would show everyone exactly who Lucas Moore was. My brother thought he'd won. Thought he'd erased me, silenced me, destroyed me. He was about to learn that some seeds grow best in darkness, and tomorrow night on Halloween, when the masks came off and the truth showed its face, Lucas was going to reap exactly what he'd sown. I texted Amber back, "See you at the harvest." October 31st, Halloween night. The Moore Harvest headquarters looked like something out of a Gothic fairy tale. Hundreds of carved pumpkins lining the walkways, their flickering candles casting dancing shadows on the walls. Orange and black bunting draped across the entrance. A string quartet playing near the champagne fountain. 200 guests in elegant black tie and costume masks, mingling and laughing like this was just another corporate celebration and not the systematic destruction of my family's legacy. I watched from across the street, wearing a simple black dress I'd bought that afternoon. No mask, no costume. Just me, Evelyn Moore, about to walk into the lion's den. My phone buzzed. "Amber, I'm in position." Third floor server room. Can see the whole ballroom on the security feeds. Lucas just arrived. He looks nervous. Me. He should be. I crossed the street at 7:45, 15 minutes before Lucas's big speech. Security was posted at every entrance. Lucas's doing, obviously. He'd made it very clear I wasn't invited, but I wasn't planning to use the front door. I went around to the loading dock where the catering staff were bringing in last-minute supplies. I'd paid one of the servers $300 to leave a door propped open. She'd come through. I slipped inside, my heels clicking softly on the concrete floor. The service corridors were empty. Everyone was in the ballroom. I made my way through the building I'd worked in for 10 years, past offices that used to be mine, through hallways where I'd once belonged. The ballroom was on the first floor, massive floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the pumpkin fields. I positioned myself in the shadows near the back entrance where I could see the stage but wouldn't be immediately visible. Lucas stood at the center of everything, shaking hands with the Japanese buyers, smiling his perfect CEO smile. He wore a custom tux and a simple domino mask, just enough costume to fit the theme, not enough to hide his face. He wanted everyone to see him, to remember this as his moment of triumph. Mom sat at the family table, wearing a silver gown and looking 20 years older than she was. She kept touching her necklace, Dad's gift to her on their 30th anniversary, and staring at nothing. Nathan stood near the stage, briefcase in hand, looking like he might throw up. When he spotted me in the shadows, he gave the tiniest nod. At exactly 8 p.m., the lights dimmed. A spotlight hit the stage. Lucas walked to the microphone, and the room fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice carrying across the ballroom, "thank you for being here tonight. This is a historic moment, not just for Moore Harvest, but for agricultural business in America." Applause! Cameras flashing. Lucas eating it up. My grandfather started this company in 1950 with a single pumpkin patch and a dream. My father expanded it into an empire. And tonight, I am honored to announce that Moore Harvest will become part of something even greater, a global agricultural leader that will feed millions, employ thousands, and set the standard for modern farming. More applause. I felt my jaw clench. "Some people," Lucas continued, and I swear he glanced toward the shadows where I stood, "believe that family businesses should stay small, should resist change, should cling to outdated traditions. But I believe in evolution. I believe in growth. I believe in building something that transcends any single name, any single generation." He gestured to the Japanese executives. "Mr. Tanaka, it is my privilege to formally transfer ownership of Moore Harvest to Tanaka Agricultural Holdings. Together, we will—" The lights went out. Complete darkness just for 3 seconds. Long enough for confusion, for murmurs of concern. Then the screens flickered to life, not with Lucas's polished presentation, with something else entirely, Amber's work. The main screen showed a document, Lucas's signature on a maintenance deferral form, dated September 15th, 2020, 2 weeks before the explosion. Lucas's voice came over the speakers, but it wasn't him speaking now. It was a recording, audio from his office. "I don't care what the regulations say. We're deferring all non-critical maintenance until after Q4. I need these margins up 15%, and I'm not spending money on equipment that's worked fine for 50 years. Another voice, David Chen, the former CFO. "Lucas, the silos are old. The grain dust alone is a significant fire hazard. If OSHA finds out—" "OSHA isn't gonna find out, and if they do, we'll deal with it then. Right now, I need those cost savings." The ballroom was dead silent. Lucas's face had gone white. This is some kind of Halloween prank. Turn it off. Someone turn it." The screen changed. Now it showed email exchanges, Lucas's words in black and white. To D. Chen. Subject, Q3 budget cuts. David, implement the attached maintenance deferrals immediately. Don't log these in the public board minutes. We'll categorize them as operational efficiency measures. LM Lucas strode toward the AV booth. "Cut the feed, now!" But nothing happened. The screens kept playing. More emails, more audio recordings, a systematic pattern of fraud, corner cutting, and willful negligence. And then the screen showed a photo. My father, Edward Moore, standing in the equipment yard. The timestamp, September 28th, 2020, 3:15 p.m. 32 minutes before the explosion, a video began playing. Security camera footage, grainy but clear enough. Dad, pointing at silo number 4, his face red with anger. Lucas, gesturing dismissively, backing away. Dad following, shouting words that had no audio but didn't need it. The fury was visible in every line of his body. And then at 3:47 p.m., the explosion, the fireball, the collapse, the chaos. The screen went black for a moment. Then text appeared. White letters on black. Edward Moore died because his son chose profit over safety. Lucas Moore forged documents to cover his negligence. This is not a Halloween prank. This is the truth. I stepped out of the shadows into the center aisle. Every head turned. "My name is Evelyn Moore," I said, my voice steady and clear. "I am the daughter of Edward Moore and the granddaughter of James Moore, who started this company in 1950 with a single pumpkin patch and a promise. We harvest honest food for honest families." Lucas spotted me, his face contorting with rage. "Security, remove her! Now!" But no one moved. Every eye was on me. "For 5 years, Skr," I continued, walking slowly toward the stage. "I watched my brother corrupt that promise. For 3 years, I was erased from our family's story. And tonight, I'm returning the truth to where it belongs, in the light." I reached the stage, pulled a USB drive from my clutch, and placed it on the signing table. "Everything is here! Every forged signature, every falsified report, every crime. Server logs authenticated by a forensic IT specialist. Audio recordings with verified metadata, legal testimony from corporate counsel." I looked directly at Nathan. "Isn't that right, Mr. Brooks?" Nathan stood, his voice shaking but clear. "Yes, I've reviewed all evidence. It's legally valid and admissible in court. Lucas Moore systematically defrauded this company, endangered his employees, and directly caused the death of Edward Moore through gross negligence." The Japanese executives were standing now, speaking rapidly to each other in Japanese. One of them, Mr. Tanaka himself, approached Lucas with cold fury on his face. "This sale is canceled," he said in perfect English. "Tanaka Holdings does not do business with criminals." Lucas grabbed my arm, his grip painful. "You bitch! You vindictive little—" "Get your hands off her." It was Mom's voice, loud and commanding in the silent ballroom. Lucas turned, shocked. Mom was standing at the family table, tears streaming down her face. "I've been silent for 3 years," she said, her voice breaking. "I covered for you, Lucas. I paid settlements. I lied to investigators. I let you erase your sister from the company, from the family, from everything." She walked toward us slowly. "But I can't do it anymore. I can't let you destroy what Edward built." "Mom," Lucas said, his voice desperate, "you don't understand. If she—" "I understand perfectly." Mom looked up at the screen, where a photo now showed Edward hugging a young Lucas, both of them smiling. "Your father loved you. He believed in you. And you killed him for a profit margin." She turned to me, took my hands. "You did what I should have done. You chose truth over comfort." She looked at the board members, the shareholders, the stunned crowd. "I formally move that Lucas Moore be suspended as CEO, pending criminal investigation. All in favor?" A forest of hands went up. "All opposed?" Silence. Mom picked up the gavel from the signing table, the one that was supposed to finalize the sale, and brought it down with a sharp crack. "Lucas Moore, you are hereby suspended indefinitely from all positions at Moore Harvest Company." Lucas let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "You're all going to regret this. The company will collapse without me. The sale is dead. You'll lose everything." "No," I said quietly. "You will. Because Moore Harvest was never about you, Lucas. It was about the people who worked in these fields. It was about the families we fed. It was about integrity and quality and building something that would last." I looked around at the stunned crowd, employees, shareholders, community members who'd known our family for generations. You tried to sell our legacy to the highest bidder. You tried to erase our father's name, our family's values, everything we stood for. I met his eyes. But seeds that are planted in good soil don't die just because someone tries to poison them. They grow deeper roots. They survive. Security was moving toward Lucas now. Real security, not his hand-picked team. Someone had called the police. "Evelyn," Lucas said, and for the first time I heard real fear in his voice. "Please, I'm your brother. Don't do this." "You're right," I said. "You are my brother, and that's exactly why I have to do this." Because family means protecting each other, not destroying each other. It means upholding a legacy, not selling it. It means justice. The police arrived, read Lucas his rights, walked him out of the ballroom while 200 witnesses watched in silence. As he passed me, he whispered, "Father always saw me as the one who belonged in the fields. Now you've turned me into a ghost in the harvest." "No," I said softly. "You chose the false light, Lucas. I only turned on the real one. And that light showed everyone who you really are." They led him away. The ballroom remained silent for a long moment. Then slowly one person started clapping, then another. Then another. Not for me, for the truth, for justice, for the end of 3 years of lies. I looked up at the screens, where the last slide now showed a photo of my father holding a pumpkin, smiling in the autumn sunlight. Edward Moore, 1953-2020, founder, father, the heart of Moore Harvest. And for the first time in 3 years, I let myself cry. The legal proceedings took 6 months. Lucas was charged with fraud, negligent homicide, and a dozen other crimes. The evidence was overwhelming. Thanks to Amber's meticulous documentation, Nathan's legal testimony, and the testimony of workers who'd been afraid to speak up before, he took a plea deal, 15 years in prison, full restitution to victims' families, permanent ban from corporate leadership. My mother testified against him. It nearly broke her, but she did it. Said in open court that she'd covered up the investigation, paid illegal settlements, and remained silent while her son destroyed the company her husband had built. The judge gave her community service and probation. Said that while she'd committed crimes, she'd also been a victim of Lucas's manipulation and ultimately had done the right thing by coming forward. Nathan Brooks had his embezzlement charges dropped, part of a whistleblower protection deal. He started a new practice focused on corporate ethics and accountability. Last I heard, he's doing well. Amber Pierce got a formal apology from the board, a significant financial settlement, and an offer to return as head of IT. She declined the job offer but kept the money, started her own cybersecurity consulting firm. We have lunch once a month. Robert Hale, the auditor whose 2021 report had been ignored, was vindicated completely. His testimony helped establish the timeline of Lucas's negligence. The company now uses his firm exclusively for all audits. As for me, the board voted me in as interim CEO while we restructured. It's been a year now since that Halloween night. I'm standing in the pumpkin fields, the same ones my grandfather planted 75 years ago. The morning sun is warm on my face, and the soil is rich and dark in my hands. We didn't sell to Tanaka Holdings. Instead, we restructured as a family-owned business with an independent board. We doubled down on the organic expansion, implemented new safety protocols, and created a memorial fund in Dad's name for agricultural worker safety initiatives. The company's smaller now. We lost some investors after the scandal, but we're profitable, we're ethical, and we're growing. More importantly, we're real. Mom walks up beside me, her silver hair catching the light. She's aged in the past year, but there's also a peace to her now that I never saw before. She's been in therapy, making amends, learning to live with her choices. Your father would be proud of you, she says softly. I look at her. Would he? Evelyn, everything you did, exposing Lucas, protecting the company, refusing to let the legacy be sold off for profit, that's exactly what Edward would have wanted. She kneels beside me, taking her own handful of soil. He always knew you were the strong one, the one with real integrity. Then why did he give Lucas control? Mom sighs. Because your father was raised in a different time. Because he thought the oldest son was supposed to inherit. Because he was human and he made mistakes. She looks at me with tears in her eyes. But in the end, in his heart, he knew the truth. That's why he came to you about the maintenance cuts. That's why he was going to remove Lucas as CEO. We sit in silence for a moment, surrounded by pumpkins ready for harvest. I'm sorry, Mom says finally. For everything. For choosing Lucas over you. For staying silent. I know, I squeeze her hand. And I forgive you. Not because it doesn't hurt, but because holding on to anger would just make me like Lucas. And I refuse to become that. A worker waves from across the field. Time to start the day's harvest. As I stand, I have a sudden memory. Dad, teaching me how to plant seeds when I was 6 years old. Seeds need darkness to sprout, Evelyn, he'd said, covering them with soil. They need to be buried, to sit in the dark and the cold before they can grow. That's not a curse, that's nature. That's how life works. But why, I'd asked, why can't they just grow in the sunshine? Dad had smiled, that gentle smile I still miss every day. Because sunshine is easy, sweetheart. Any plant can grow in perfect conditions. But the ones that start in darkness, that push through the soil to reach the light, those are the ones that survive droughts. Those are the ones that last. I look down at the soil in my hands now, let it fall through my fingers. Lucas tried to bury me, tried to erase me, silence me, destroy me. But he forgot what Dad taught us. Seeds need darkness to sprout. And I sprouted. I grew. And now I'm the harvest. The company's harvest schedule is displayed on my phone. 20,000 pumpkins ready for pickup today. Orders from restaurants and grocery stores across the region. Good, honest work, fair pay, safe conditions, everything Dad believed in, everything Lucas betrayed, everything I'm rebuilding, one day at a time. Mom and I walk back toward the headquarters building. It's different now. No garish orange lights, no artificial celebrations. Just a company that's doing its work quietly, ethically, persistently. As we pass the memorial garden we planted in Dad's name, I pause. His headstone is simple. Edward Moore, 1953-2020. He taught us that integrity is the only legacy worth leaving. I kept my promise, Dad, I whisper. I protected what you built. That night, I sit in my office, the corner office that used to be Lucas's, that he'd taken from me all those years ago, and open my laptop. There's a message from a reporter asking for an interview about my incredible story of justice and revenge. I delete it. This isn't about revenge. It never was. Revenge is what Lucas wanted. Revenge on Dad for not respecting him. Revenge on me for being better at the job. Revenge on everyone who ever made him feel inadequate. What I did was justice. And there's a difference. Justice is about restoration, not destruction. About truth, not retribution. About making things right, not making yourself feel better. Lucas is in prison. Yes. But I take no pleasure in that. I'm just relieved that he can't hurt anyone else. My phone buzzes. A text from Nathan. Board meeting tomorrow at 9. Ready to present the Q4 numbers? Me. Ready. And Nathan? Thank you. For everything. Nathan. Thank you for giving me a chance to be the lawyer I always wanted to be. I look around my office. There's a photo on my desk now. Dad and me in the pumpkin fields, both of us covered in soil and grinning. I was 10 years old in that photo. He'd just taught me how to calculate harvest yields. "You're a natural, Evelyn," he'd said. "Smart as a whip. This company's going to be in good hands someday." I trace the edge of the photo frame. "It is, Dad," I say aloud. "It is." Outside my window, the moon rises over the fields. November moon, full and bright, illuminating thousands of pumpkins waiting for tomorrow's harvest. I think about everyone who helped me get here. Amber, with her meticulous evidence and her hatred of hypocrisy. Nathan finding his courage after years of being controlled. Robert Hale standing firm on his ethical audit, even when it cost him his job. Even Mom, finally choosing truth over comfort. None of us are perfect. We all made mistakes, all had moments of weakness. But in the end, we did the right thing. And that's what Dad would have wanted. I open my journal, the leather one I've been keeping for 6 years now, the one that documented every crime Lucas committed, every moment of erasure I endured. I flip to a blank page and write, November 1st, 1 year after the Halloween gala. The company is healing, the fields are producing, the people are safe. Lucas is where he belongs, facing consequences for his actions. Mom is finding peace, one day at a time, and I am finally home. Not the home I left 3 years ago, broken and betrayed, but a new home, one I built myself, seed by seed, truth by truth. Dad once told me that justice doesn't always grow in the light. Sometimes it germinates in the dark, waiting for the right season. I spent 3 years in that darkness. 3 years documenting, planning, waiting for the right moment to let the truth bloom. And now, standing in the light of that truth, I finally understand what he meant. The seeds that grow in darkness aren't cursed. They're resilient. They're strong. They survive because they've learned to grow without needing perfect conditions. I am my Father's daughter. I am the harvest he always believed I could be. And this company, this legacy, will endure because it's built on something Lucas never understood. Truth, integrity, justice. Not the inheritance you're given, but the legacy you grow. I close the journal and set it aside. Tomorrow there's a board meeting, next week a safety audit, next month contract negotiations with new organic buyers. The work continues, the harvest continues, and I continue, no longer the erased sister, the forgotten daughter, the invisible heir. I am Evelyn Moore. I am the CEO of Moore Harvest, and I am exactly where I belong. I turn off the lights and lock my office, walking through the quiet building toward the exit. As I pass the portraits of company founders, my grandfather James, my father Edward, I stop. I did it, I tell them. I saved what you built, and I'll keep saving it every day for as long as I'm able. The portraits don't answer, of course, but in the dim light, I swear I see Dad smile. Outside, the November air is crisp and cold, the kind of cold that kills weak plants but makes strong ones stronger. I breathe it in, let it fill my lungs. 3 years ago, I left this town broken and defeated. I thought I'd lost everything, my position, my family, my father, but I hadn't lost the most important thing. I hadn't lost myself, and in the darkness of those 3 years, I found something Lucas never had. The strength to choose truth over comfort, justice over revenge, integrity over victory. I get in my car and drive past the fields one last time. The pumpkins glow silver in the moonlight, row after perfect row, ready for harvest. Some of them started as seeds in the darkness of this very soil. They push through dirt and doubt and darkness to reach the light. Just like me, and tomorrow when the harvest begins, we'll all be ready. Because that's what survivors do. We grow, we endure, we harvest what we've planted in the dark, and we turn it into light. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever had your story stolen, if you've ever been told you're not enough, this is for you. Your truth matters. Your voice matters. And sometimes the seeds you plant in darkness become the light that guides you home. Share your story in the comments below. Tell me about your moment of justice, your moment of standing up, your moment of harvest. Because every story deserves to be told. Every voice deserves to be heard. And every seed deserves its chance to grow. Some inherit legacies, others must grow them, seed by seed, truth by truth, harvest by harvest. Which one are you?